So we have our flower fields all set up. We have our spaces set up so that it's large, small, small, large, small, small, large. And what we're going to do is we're going to create our flowers in the large sections. And then we're going to create a pattern between stems and then furrows, or those space between the fields where the tractor can drive. And you can use any kind of color that you want for these. I'm going to do two colors, and I'm just going to do sort of my middle and one of my left sides here, just to kind of show you what I'm talking about. So when you start, just like we practiced, you want to start with drawing your flowers very large near the bottom of your paper. And then going off into the distance. Some things to note about the one in front of you here. These flowers, you're kind of standing in the middle of this section of flowers, looking off into the distance. So you're really only seeing like the tops of the flowers. So you're like, if I was going to do tulips, this might be my tulip flower shapes. And then I might color these in. And I would repeat these and repeat these and repeat these, smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, until way off in the distance you're just kind of seeing purple dots. And it might be easier for you to work like I am, where you just kind of go and do your little purple dots, and then you might work, you know, bigger, and then you might just get bigger kind of circly blobby type shapes. And then they turn into actual like flowery squiggles. And then as you get closer, you get the much bigger ones. And that might give you a better idea of, you know, how big to actually go when you get up to the ones up here. When you are working in marker, it's important that you sort of consider those spaces in between. And those are going to be your green stems for this section. And we're also going to have stems in the other sections, but we're going to also see the sides of them. So we would fill this one totally in, it'd be lovely, but I'm going to hop over to this section over here. I'm going to do a different color just for some contrast and some interest. And I might even do a different kind of flower. I might choose to do like the cone flowers. So these ones, even though they're over here, they're still going to grow up towards the sky. So this is my sky up here. And so, but I don't want them, so they're not pointed towards my vanishing point. My verticals are always staying vertical. So these are my cone flowers. And so I'm going to draw these growing straight up. They're not going to be going off in a funny direction. They're going to grow straight up towards the sky. And this is something that a lot of kids get really confused about, or they get really like concerned that like, oh no, I have to draw my flowers going back towards this vanishing point. Nope, you just need to make them going up and down. And then as you get closer to the vanishing point, though, smaller. So they're still going to stay up and down, but they're getting smaller as they go back towards that vanishing point. And then all of a sudden, then you have those, just the lines. And then as they get even smaller, they might just become dots as they get back towards that vanishing point and filling in that space there. Okay, so it gets kind of tricky to think about this, but remember, with 1 point perspective, we always have vertical lines and horizontal lines. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish this one up here, this section of this field. And I find it easier to do the next part of the assignment using a different material than whatever I've chosen for the flowers. You can choose whatever you'd like, but I find that it's a little easier to tell the difference as far as what I'm doing if what I'm doing then is a different material. So I'm having a tendency of swiping my cone flowers off to the left there, and I don't need to do that. I can keep those going right up and down. Now you'll notice that when I'm doing this, I'm not totally worried about keeping 100% in my little section that I've drawn my line on. This is because it's a field. It's organic. It doesn't necessarily go perfectly straight. As long as we have the idea that it is getting smaller as it's going back to that vanishing point, you'll be in good shape. So before I get any further right now, though, I am going to take my eraser and I'm going to go ahead and erase the line just at the bottom of the flowers. I don't need to erase all the lines, just that one. And then I am going to grab our pencils and I'm going to draw the stems that are coming off of these cone flowers. So these are the green parts of the flowers that are going to go vertically straight up to a flower. So each flower top needs the green stem, and then they might have some leaves down kind of near at the bottom or along the sides, however you want to do that. So this cone flower needs some tall parts. You want to add a green stem for every cone flower that you've got in there. And hey, look, you've got some that are further back, and so you're not necessarily going to see 100% of that stem, but that's okay. We're just going to go ahead and add those in for all those flowers. And I imagine I would have some more flowers over off the page, so I'm going to add a little bit more green in there. So vertical up and down lines. And remember, these should be vertical. Don't start tipping them back. Don't start going towards that vanishing point. We're going to just keep these nice and straight, up and down lines all the way across. And as they get further and further away, you can just start doing lines. And use those orthogonal diagonal lines to tell you where that green goes, not the direction of the green. And I'm just going to add a little bit of green to the spaces in between my flowers, as if there's lots of stems growing up in there, because there probably would be, right? Okay, so just adding a little bit of green in those little gaps, and this section of flower fields is done. There's one more part that we want to do, and that is the space between the fields where the tractor goes, or the tractor kind of squashes all the flowers, or they don't plant any flowers there because they know that's going to happen. And these are going to be what we call our furrows, and we're going to use horizontal lines. So we're going to use our pencil or color pencil or crayon or whatever horizontally. And this is the trickiest part. It's really super easy to start just connecting the shortest possible line and doing that diagonal all the way back there, but you really want to keep these lines horizontal to the edge of your paper. So as you're working, sometimes it's easier to tip your paper as you go, but you really want to keep these horizontal. And if you want to periodically have kind of those tractor wheel marks, or where the plow goes through, you can add some kind of curved lines. But again, we really want to keep these horizontal or side to side. They shouldn't start tipping. So, you can always kind of check yourself, put your pencil along the bottom of your paper and slide it up. If it sort of follows that straight line, you're in good shape. But if it doesn't, then you need to correct your angle a little bit. So it's going to feel really funny. You're going to want to try to tip it, but it's going to really help your overall look if you pay attention to that and you don't let it start tipping. You keep it nice and straight. Okay, so these are the spaces in between the fields where the tractor would drive to sort of plow and collect the flowers and let them actually be like a crop, because that's what they are in Holland. So this is what you're going to do, is you're going to kind of repeat this process on all the different parts of your picture. So the wide spaces, remember, that's where the flowers go. The next space is for the stems, and then the space is for the furrows. Now the middle one, you notice, doesn't have any stems. Well, that's because we're standing in the middle of it, so the stems are actually intermixed with the flowers themselves. So the thing I really like about using marker and color pencil together is I can actually just color right on top of the marker and with the color pencil, and you won't really even see, as long as I'm not coloring super hard, the color pencil through it, but it'll color all those spaces, which is nice, which is what I want. So this is kind of the idea of what our goal is for this project, is finishing this all up and then adding some color to your sky. And I'll talk a little bit about some options you have for your sky when we're done. So go off and do some work. Remember, keep your lines horizontal and vertical. Vertical in the stems, horizontal side to side in those furrows. Don't let them start tipping, like even I started tipping here a little bit. So keep them nice and straight. It's a little bit tricky, but you can do it.